Okay, welcome everyone. Hello to everyone who is tuning in here for the info session for our upcoming online course, Building Diverse and Inclusive Communities with Crystal Farmer. And Crystal is here with us today to share about this course, to answer your questions. And really our intention is to help you in determining whether or not this course seems like a good fit for you, for something you want to sign up for. And my name is Cynthia. I am one of the co-directors with the Foundation for Intentional Community, FIC. And I'm calling in from Vermont, where I live at an eco-village called Headwaters Community in central Vermont. And I'm really excited to be talking with Crystal today because it's always a treat when we get to spend time with Crystal and learn from her. So I have a short presentation I'm going to run through with all of you, and then we'll jump into some questions with Crystal and also answer your questions. So please be thinking about questions that you have to ask about the course or about Crystal. And there we are. Okay, so once again, this is the info session, just an hour for us to sit down and focus in on this course that's coming up soon. And the course begins on June 2nd. The title is Building Diverse and Inclusive Communities. So really honing in on whether it's an intentional community or another form of cooperative group setting, how can you build in more diversity and create a more inclusive community? And I know this has been a big topic, especially coming out of last summer and this really awakening around social justice. And I know that so many intentional communities are looking at this right now really critically, really analyzing their own makeup, or if they're starting a community, thinking about how they can set up things to be more welcoming to people of all backgrounds. So I'm really excited to share also that for everyone who has registered for this information session and is joining in via Zoom, we'd like to offer each of you 30% off the course price. So after this event, you'll receive an email that'll include a unique discount code that you can use to apply at checkout when you're registering for the course. The normal price of the course is $299, so this will give you 30% off that, that price. And more information plus the scholarship application for this course is available at ic.org/diversity-course. And I really encourage you to apply for a scholarship. We've given out many scholarships over these past months for all of our courses. And it's a big part of our mission as an organization to make this information as accessible as possible. And I think that's especially true for an online course focused on inclusion. So encourage you to do that if it feels good and right for you. All right, a little bit about the structure for this course. It is going to be a similar format to our other online courses if you've taken one with us before. It's a 5-week long program. This one's going to be I'm sorry, I think I have the wrong dates in there. Starting on June 2nd and running until July 7th. And each week will feature a 2-hour live class session with Crystal. That won't be in Zoom webinar mode, it'll be in Zoom meeting mode. So you'll be able to see the other students in your cohort, do breakout groups, really have a pretty engaging experience. I think that's one of the things that makes the courses we offer a little bit different than other courses in that there's very little pre-recorded content. All of it is through live sessions with the instructors. So you can ask questions and really learn, network with your cohort. All of the classes for this course are going to take place from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. So that is a little different than our other courses that have been alternating in times. We thought we'd make this a little easier and just stick to one time every week on the same day. In addition to the classes, there will also be 2 to 3 bonus sessions on relevant topics that are part of our normal events program, but you'll get free access to when you sign up for this course, as well as homework assignments, forum access for networking, and really dedicated support from our organization. This is the best way that we can support you in joining community and finding community, starting a community, developing your existing community. This is sort of the primo way that our organization has designed to support you in that journey. And I'm excited to share a little bit more about our dedicated learning platform that we have been slowly building out. And I feel like it is now at an awesome stage. So this is the learning platform that you'll have access to as a course participant, where you can really enter a portal that has all of your course information, like the schedule for your course, as well as a place where you can have your own profile and really start that networking process. Like, this isn't just taking a course, it's also an opportunity to network with people who care about intentional community from really all over the world. And within each course, there is this space that is a discussion forum. So you can have conversation, not only with the other students, but also with Crystal as your instructor. All right, well, that's all that I have for the moment. Now we're gonna shortly open it up for questions. I have some initial questions for Crystal, but we wanna hear yours as well. So if you're in Zoom, go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like to share your question verbally. You can press on that raise your hand button. If you have a question that's just for myself or Crystal, it'd be really helpful if you put that in the Q&A box. If you have comments or more general questions that you want to ask to everyone who's tuning in, you can put those into the chat box. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And oh, yeah, okay, Crystal.
Hello.
Welcome. Great to have you. You want to share a little bit about where you are and what do you say?
Yeah, so I'm Crystal. I am a diversity consultant generally. What do I do? I talk to communities and nonprofit organizations about diversity and help them understand the issues that they need to resolve to recruit more people who are from different backgrounds, or to help resolve conflicts between people, and then just to overall, be the organization that they want to be. My full-time job is working at a self-directed center for children with disabilities. So that's where I am right now, and that's where I'll be during the course in the afternoons during our course. I'm here at Gastonia Freedom School in Gastonia, North Carolina. And yeah.
Wonderful. And you relatively recently published a book.
Yeah,
nice.
So, I published a book. It's called The Token: Common Sense Ideas for Increasing Diversity in Your Organization. It's very short, and it has a lot of discussion questions and things to help communities along that path. So the course will have a lot of the things that are in the book, but the book also has more detailed kind of descriptions of some of the things that we won't be able to get to. But so the course is about different aspects of diversity. And what we're going to do is we're going to spend time on different aspects and do a lot of reflecting on our own identity and how we think of ourselves, and then how that relates to our experience in community. So whether you're already in community, or if you're forming a community, or if you're just considering living in a community, this will help anybody in whatever stage they are. It's most focused toward people who are in community, and especially community leaders who want to work on policies, or who want to work on like diversity statements, or who are thinking about, how do we recruit people, or how do we make our meetings more accessible to people? So it'll be very heavy in those kind of details about, the practical things you can do in your community to help make it more diverse. But it's good for anybody because we will be exploring like our own identity and how we think about that. And I'll be challenging you, in ways that you think about your identity. And we'll be talking about the experiences of marginalized people, so that you can have awareness of what people go through and what they need when it comes to community.
Okay, great. So it sounds like the course will be touching on different levels, like the individual, personal, community level, and also the bigger context that we're all swimming in.
Yeah, so I can tell you each week we'll focus on a couple different areas. So the first week we're going to do a lot of kind of overview stuff, some ground rules, some icebreakers, which are some of my favorite things to do, just so we can kind of form our own little community. The second week, we're going to talk about race and ethnicity, and then something that's called white supremacy culture. If you haven't heard of that term, we'll kind of be diving into it and talking about kind of the ways that our cultural expectations kind of set us up for being exclusive. The third week, we'll talk about gender and sexuality. The fourth week, we'll be talking about disability and age. And the fifth week will be wrap up and reflections. And then she mentioned the bonus session. So there'll be a couple of workshops that I'll do, and then there'll be some workshops from other great presenters about diversity that y'all will have access to as well.
Well, I see we have some good questions coming through. So one of the questions is something that I've been wondering as well. We use this word community a lot, and maybe it might be helpful for the purposes of this course to talk about what type of community you're referring to or focusing on. Is it online, offline, professional, regional, personal? Yeah, what is it, an eco-village, co-housing? What would you say?
Yeah, so this course is designed for FIC specifically. So it's focusing on intentional communities. So that's going to be co-housing, communes, co-ops to a certain extent, more residential communities where you're interacting with people day to day. Depending on who's all there and what the needs are, we may talk about communities like a club that you would go to, like a knitting club, or a organization that you're a part of, like a nonprofit organization, like PFLAG, or some other LGBTQ organization. We will definitely talk about practical things like meeting accessibility that helps for communities like that meet in a building. Since it's Zoom, we'll naturally encounter some things that I can talk about as far as accessibility for online groups, but this course is not specifically for groups that are only meeting online. It's for groups that are anticipating meeting in person and being in physical space with each other.
That's great. I think that's helpful. So designed for place-based, residential, intentional communities, applicable to all different types of communities. Great. And then we had a question in the chat. Hi, Crystal. Can you share a little bit more about your work with people who experience disability?
Yeah, so I'm disabled myself. So I have a couple of disabilities that affect the way that I move through the world. So I write about that in my book, and I've used that as a way to connect people. But the center that I work for, the center that I helped founded, which is called Gastonia Freedom School, is a center for children with disabilities. So we have children from age 3 all the way up to 17. Most of them have autism. Some of them have like low intellectual disability or ADHD, things like that. So that's my everyday work, is working with kids with disabilities and helping them to access our world. So that's kind of my experience. And the work that I'll be drawing on is from disability advocates. So if you're on Twitter or Facebook a lot, you may see that there's a lot of autistic adults, for example. There was a movie called Crip Camp that kind of talked about the history of disability. So those voices are coming up a lot more nowadays, and I'm going to be helping to channel those voices so that people can understand, kind of what disabled people experience and what their needs are in community.
Right. That was really helpful. Thank you. Here. Oh, I did receive a question in the Q&A box about what if I need to miss a week? Will I be able to watch it later? And the answer is definitely yes. We're recording not only all of the classes, but also all of the bonus sessions are available for you to watch later. And we do have a question from an anonymous attendee who has raised their hand and has a follow-up question, the question that was asked earlier, but I'm not seeing anonymous attendee unless you're Jess also. I think you need to raise your hand, just click on that raise your hand button so I can call on you to.
Was it the one about work-based collectives?
Oh yes, okay, you are Jess. Okay, I'll allow you to talk.
Hello.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to be anonymous. So thank you. I'm just wanted to clarify a little bit or just get a better sense of the sort of this idea of just if this is super applicable to the situation I'm in, which is a more sort of professional based community. We're mixed. We're online now, but eventually we'll be moving back into in-person. But it's not like an intentional living community or co-housing. It's more like professional based affinity group, I guess is how I would describe it. But we're a collective, and it sounds like this would still be applicable, that a lot of the topics you're covering are relevant across the board, but I just thought I'd clarify, because we're definitely not living together.
Yeah, that's fine. I do work with organizations that are just like people who work together. And you're right, these topics are universal. And once you understand, disability, for instance, in a residential context, you can, of course, bring that over to a work context. One thing that, sometimes I encounter being autistic is people who are working with me are like, well, why in the world did she do that? I don't understand where she's coming from. Well, it's because my brain is thinking differently. So when you are able to think, oh, maybe this person is thinking of it differently, or they have a disability that affects their interaction, then you can have some empathy for that and figure out a way to cooperate with them. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here, what other questions? So someone has put into the Q&A box about not being able to make this upcoming course starting on June 2nd. So we do offer the same course 2 additional times throughout this year. So the next 2 starting dates are on August 26th, November 18th. So if you can't attend this one for whatever reason, the same course will be offered 2 additional times. And I believe Crystal can speak to this more, but most likely the content will be very similar. What will be different are the bonus sessions. We'll have a different mix of guest speakers, guest presenters. So those bonus sessions might be a bit different. Would you say that's true, Crystal?
Yeah, the content is going to be the same. It may evolve, as conversations go, or as people have different interests, and we may, bring something up a different way. But yeah, it'll generally be the same course.
Good questions, everyone. I feel like we have a lot coming through. That's awesome. And really encourage you, if you'd like to raise your hand to ask your question out loud. That's always nice, so we can hear some different voices. And I'm going to hop over and check out our Facebook space. And I see Amaris, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. You have a question, so go ahead and.
I'm following. I hadn't tracked that you'd prefer that we do a verbal question. So I'm following up on my question about the differences among the 3 sessions. And so you said the bonus sessions will differ. Are those varying different bonus sessions predetermined that you would be able to tell us that what themes might be for each of the sessions?
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't have our August schedule determined yet, and we're really close to nailing in the schedule for this course. So let me pull up here what we have. Second.
I mean, and if they're so closely similar that it's not a big deal, that's okay. I don't need to like belabor something, but
Yeah,
yeah.
They will be somewhat similar, and also to keep in mind, any and all of the bonus sessions you can register for, independent of whether or not you take the course. So
Oh,
really like, they're just part of our normal events program. So if you go to ic.org/events, that's where you'll be able to see all of the upcoming events. But when you register for the course, you get those. You don't have to register or pay any registration fees for those separate courses. It's just included.
oh, okay. That makes a difference. So we can still attend any of those. Okay.
Yeah.
I will have a question later at the very end after everyone's gone, if you don't mind, but yeah. Okay.
Great.
Because it's unrelated to this course, but about the internet access. Okay.
Okay, cool. And feel free to email me directly if you have any more logistical questions. I'll put my email address into the chat, but it's just cynthia@ic.org. Easy to remember.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And let's see here. So I do want to share with folks that one of the bonus sessions for this course will be a bonus session on how housing policy, the history of housing policy, has impacted the diversity of intentional communities today. And that's going to be with actually a former intern of ours who is now going on to get her PhD degree looking at housing policy specifically. So that I think is going to be an awesome housing policy, land distribution, and how that has impacted this movement of intentional communities and how diverse it is or isn't. And we're also going to have a panel event with various BIPOC intentional communities, BIPOC-led intentional communities sharing about their community projects specifically. And also a session on neurodiversity. It's going to be a webinar focused on neurodiversity specifically in intentional communities and how people who think in different ways are moving through community spaces and how communities can be more welcome of neurodiversity. So yeah, that's a little, we don't have all the dates confirmed yet, so that's why I haven't shared the full calendar, but that's a little insight into what's coming up. All right, and looks like we have more questions. So let's go to Sue. I'd love to hear your question.
Hello. This course looks really awesome. I kind of have a question that has to do with our little committee that is starting to revamp our values and principles, and how diversity. We started out with the standard list from all the corporate diversity statements of all the types of diversity that we're welcome and encouraged and sometimes legally required. And what I'm finding is that we're having types of diversity we don't want are being the thing that's being talked about more than how we can actually become a welcoming community. And I wondered, I noticed that religion is not on there, diversity of religion in the course, and also economic and class status. And I just wondered if those sort of fit under an umbrella, or how do intentional communities deal with, actually we don't want those kind of people. I'd have to, I don't want to specify what they're saying right now, but it's kind of disturbing. And I just wondered how that fit.
Yeah, so since it's only 5 weeks, I had to focus on the areas that I wanted to focus on. We could easily spend a whole another 2 hours on socioeconomic status and religion. Um, so one thing that I think we'll talk about in the course is how to understand what you don't want and what that means for you as a community. So there's definitely boundaries that you want to put around your community, because some types of diversity may require more work or money, or just barriers that would obstruct you from getting the community built. So that's a valid need. Sometimes we can talk about ways that you can do that without harming people or without perpetuating dangerous ideas about different types of people.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great question. Thank you. And we've had a few more questions come in the Q&A box. So I'll read this first one out loud. Hi, Crystal. I'm wondering if you can briefly speak to your ideas around the dynamic of bringing diversity to a community that's forming in a pretty homogeneous area without tokenizing marginalized folks.
Yeah, so part of my book and the method that I describe in the book is understanding your community and where you are. So I'm in North Carolina. The South tends to have a very large minority population, Hispanic and Black people. We may not have as many Asian people, for instance, but then if we go up to Portland, Oregon, maybe there's more Asian and Hispanic and less Black people. So you really have to be realistic when you think about the types of diversity you want in your community. And that doesn't mean that the people who are coming are going to be tokenized. It just may mean that you have to help them understand that, they may be the one of the only, but we're still going to have inclusive policies. There's definitely going to be people who don't want to join a community because they may be the only one there, and that's okay. You as a community can only do so much to get somebody in your community. There's your work, and then there's other people's work that they need to do. So we're going to help you do what's realistic. Not, I'm not going to promise everybody that the community is going to, have a rainbow of people with all these different types of backgrounds.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. I think that question of tokenization comes up a lot. Also in the communities that I work with, I'm working with the community right now to help them with their branding, and they're currently a majority white community wanting to attract people like Black and people of color. And they're like, well, how do we show that on our website if all of the photos are just of the people of our community? Like, that's not representative of who we want to come. But then if we just stick in a few minorities, then isn't that tokenization? So yeah, question.
Yeah, I'm on the side where, if it's stock photos, find stock photos of diverse people. But, when people get there, tell them the reality and what you're working with, and just be honest about that.
Okay, that's good. Thank you for that advice. Yes. All right. So another question we have. How would we encourage people to join our co-housing community who share our cultural background over the predominant group of people who usually are interested in joining projects in our community?
Okay. So when you define kind of like who you want to be a part of your community, you're making in your mind kind of this ideal person. And I think when you're saying cultural background, you might be talking about shared values or ways of living in your community that might resonate with you more than other ways. And so it's perfectly okay to say, these are our values, these are ways that we want to live. Nobody's going to force themselves into your community. So if you make your values clear, if you make, the way that you do things clear, nobody's going to come in and say, well, I don't fit any of that, but I still want to be a part of your community. That's a lot of work for that person. And most people don't like to do work. So I think it's perfectly fine to make a list of values and to set that up and be clear about it. When you talk about culture in other ways, like as far as your background or how you grew up, that's a little bit more problematic, in that we have to think about the biases that we have, that we may have grown up a certain way and think that's a great way of living, but that doesn't mean that other people's way of living is not great too. So you do kind of have to balance that way that you view other cultures, but it's perfectly okay to say this is the culture that our community has, and that's what we're going to try and attract.
So I'm hearing in that it's really important to have your values.
Yeah. If you don't have a vision and value statement, that's probably the first thing you want to work on.
That makes sense. All right, folks, any more questions about this course? Questions for Crystal, questions, maybe things that you are wrestling with personally or in your community right now? We'd love to hear them. And also, if you're watching through Facebook, feel free to leave a comment. I'm tracking that space as well. I wonder, Amaris, if we want to go to that question you were going to save for later, because it seems like we do have a lull. So I'll allow you to share your question if you'd like.
It really is just a website information thing. So, but I did another question. Something has come up in the meantime, but now that I haven't prepared my question, we'll see if I. And it's, yeah, you asked like what's going on in our communities, and the 4 courses that I see on your schedule. Oh, okay. Well, this pertains to the question I had. I went to your main homepage and suddenly I can't find access to the events. Certainly I have enough history in the last year of a lot of your workshops that I know I can find it, but I just information wise, it wasn't like easy to find just via the homepage where it used to be, I think. Like I can see the access to the online courses, but not the individual workshops and webinars. So like one happened yesterday that I didn't find.
That's helpful information, and I'll just throw in, if you go to it's now that page lives under Connect. So if you go to Connect, and then you'll see the drop down menu item for events. But that's awesome feedback. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'll check. Thank you very much. And maybe I had a brain blurb in the last, week, and yet I haven't had such blurps on other things. So, so then you asked, like, what's going on in our community relative to it, and as you might not be surprised, your 4 courses that aren't specifically to people starting community, that are on your course schedule. They're all apropos. So I'm looking and going, well, which one do I take when, or which one do I encourage who to take when, and will I get a group together? And so I want to say thank you. They're awesome. And the topics of working with conflict, and we've got one right now where we have, a person of color in the community who's got potentially a conflict and wants help with navigating with someone who's not literally in the community, but is closely related. And so where's our role? Where is our role as either as a community or as individuals and support in there when one wants support and one doesn't? And we've, in the last year, we've started a DEI team. So we will be talking about that. We are also working on new approaches to conflict. We already were, even before the 2020 stuff came up. We're finally making tangible steps on affordability, and the cohousing.org has recently had some conferences relative to it. So it's interesting how such a lot of stuff is happening when we're finally mobilizing. Maybe we would have mobilized earlier if we'd had the skills earlier, but that's okay. And then we've got a variety of new people coming in saying, well, we didn't know this. And I see you have a course on that. So all of these dovetail, they really are intertwined. And I'm so great. It's a very rich opportunity if we can help keep ourselves, find the balance of which ones to weigh when and how they can, anyway. I'm not sure there's a question there, but I welcome any response.
Well, thank you for sharing about the richness of all the things your community is thinking about and moving through.
I think Cynthia and the team are mind readers. That's what it is.
Well, I think we've also been in this process of really listening to people interested in community and starting community, and like the events program that we ran all of last year gave us a lot of information about the kinds of information that people are hungry for. So I'm super glad to hear that it feels on point for you. And maybe the next thing we can work on is a guide to what course to take when and why. And yeah, that might be helpful.
And our DEI team is working on developing workshops directly for the community, hopefully more live than what you guys present. So our first step is to talk with people that are actually local in the area. Besides also having read The Token and a few other books. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Yeah, that's exactly what I recommend in my book, is to interview people in your local area and understand what their needs are.
Sweet. Okay. Well, anyone else who would like to ask a question, or also just to share an update maybe on where your community is at and what's going on? April Lani, I'm not sure if you had your hand up earlier, but I see it's up now. So I will bring you in so you can ask your question or share with us. Oh, I think you might need to unmute.
Okay. Thanks, Cynthia. I had my hand up earlier and I don't know, somehow it went down, but I just wanted to elaborate on my question earlier about encouraging people who share a cultural background over other people who get interested in coming over to join projects here. Okay. And I like the focus on values and vision. So that's a really good one, good way of framing that concept. But our area is really popular and we have tens of thousands of people visiting every day. And
you're in Hawaii, right?
Yes.
I remember.
Yes. Yeah, so we have tens of thousands of people moving here every year on their own. And so I'd love to hear if you could elaborate more on other appropriate ways to filter people.
Yeah, so being in Hawaii and being an indigenous community, that's going to be a lot different than having a majority white community, in that you do want to make sure that you're setting it up as, this is a safe space for us and our history and the way that we do things. And that will mean being very direct with white people and people who are, coming from the mainland, that we're trying to honor the way that we do things, and we're trying to honor our space and our place. And you may have, some real affinity, you may love Hawaii, you may think it's great, but you're not from here. And maybe there's another community that can work for you. One thing that your community could do is maybe like host workshops and information sessions and say like, here's a workshop where you can educate yourself about the history of Hawaii, the history of some of the tribes. Here's an information session where you can learn about, like our art or, some of the crafts that we do, and people can consume your culture that way. And you can also charge for it. But, that's a way that people can kind of get that fix, I think, for engaging in a different culture without being a part of your community and potentially disrupting the work that you're actually trying to do.
Thank you. I like that.
Thank you. Questions. Love how we've had people from all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not seeing any other questions.
Yeah.
Crystal, I wonder, as we start to wrap up here, if there's anything else you'd like to share about the course, and you know, things that maybe you didn't touch on, or things that you want to highlight, having heard some of the questions that people have, or even just advice for people, you know, even if they don't end up taking your course, they're wrestling with these issues in general, what advice you might have for them.
Yeah, I think, you know, starting with last year, but maybe earlier, like in 2015, 2017, this whole idea of racial justice, social justice has been becoming more important. And I think people are starting to pay attention, but it's important to know that there have been people who've been working on this their whole lives, and there's experts everywhere. And so it's okay to go on Google and just, you know, try and find those resources, you know, people like Miriam Kaba, let's see if I can type her name in the chat, you know, has talked about racial justice for years. She's written books about the incarceration system and how we can abolish policing and incarceration. You know, you've heard of Robin DiAngelo, so she's, you know, written 2 books now that are about white people, you know, interacting with identity and race and understanding those things. So there are ways that you can find resources. You don't have to take the course. You know, if you look on Google, there are lots of ways. My book has several resources in the back of it that are kind of like, you know, here are the steps to you know, learning about race, learning about the history of race, understanding identity, different aspects of identity. So the work is out there, so there's plenty of research and plenty of time to do that work. For intentional communities, I think people get really excited and want to form teams and start asking questions, but it's important to know that puts a lot of stress on your members who may be tokens, who are marginalized, because a lot of times the first thing that a group or a DEI team does is say, hey, you Black person or you LGBTQ person, tell us how to fix this, you know, tell us what to do. And it can be very disorientating, very alienating. So I recommend that you don't go to your marginalized members and ask them to lead those initiatives. It's asking them to do a lot of emotional labor for the community, and they're here just to be a part of the community. They're not here to reform the community for you. So it's important to protect those people in your community and think about their emotional well-being while these things are going on. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Good. Okay. Well, you now have everyone my email address, cynthia@ic.org, if you have any questions. Crystal has put her website into the chat as well, crystalbridefarmer.com, so you can go there for more information. Also, I think it's a good idea to put the link to your book as well, now that I think of it. Let's see here if I can. Oh, we didn't even mention, as one of the things that Crystal has really generously offered as part of this course is a free copy of the book that you, if you don't have the book already, I think you have about 50 copies available. So the first 50 people who say that they would like the book, we would be happy to send you the book. And I'm just grabbing that link. I'll put.
Yeah, my book, you can get it from my website or FIC's website, or New Society, which there's a link for that. Yeah.
There. Okay, wonderful. And I'll put the link also to the diversity course. I'll put the link to the course as well in case you want to go and check out that course page again. And good. Well, I hope to see some of you on the session. And thank you so much, Crystal, for your time today and for offering this course and for all of the important work that you're doing. Really, really appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm excited. Oh, yeah, so people who join the course, I will mail you my book before the course starts.
Yeah, it's April Lani, when you register for the course, one of the first things you'll be sent is a pre-course survey. And so that's one of the questions if you'd like to get the book, and we'll get your mailing address and all of that. So be sure to fill out the survey if you'd like to get the book. And all right, well, thank you everyone for joining in, and take care. Hope to see some of you soon. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.